So just before we start looking at other ways to map values from this live device out to our Ableton Live set, I just wanted to look at cleaning up the MIDI routing that we have at the moment. So if you remember, mapping the output of the MIDI output of this device to a parameter in live is a little bit finicky at the moment. We need to select the AIC driver as our output, and then we need to turn on our PoseNet model, and then we need to select the parameter in our live set that we want to map, for instance this send knob here, and then we need to press Command M, and that instantly maps the output of this device to that parameter we had pre-selected. You can imagine though, if we have multiple parameters here, and we do want to have multiple parameters, that this could get very messy very quickly. So let's just look at a quick way to kind of get around that for the moment. So we want to open our live device, put it into editing mode, and the problem is that because we're receiving values from PoseNet all the time, that means we're essentially sending out MIDI messages all the time. So we need a way to turn those MIDI messages on and off. And the way to do that, or one way to do that, is to use a gate. So let's disconnect the pack from the MIDI format object and create a gate object. And the way this works is we put the message that we want to be gated into the right inlet. We take the outlet of the gate and send that where we would have normally sent the message. And then into the left inlet, we need to send either a 0 or a non-zero. So a 0 will close the gate, and any other number other than 0 will open it. So for that, let's use a live.toggle. And when we click the toggle, it'll send out a 1, opening the gate. And when we unclick or deselect it, it'll send a 0, closing the gate. So that's pretty much exactly what we want. Let's add that to the presentation mode as well. Let's locate it or present it nicely. And this is essentially going to be the on-off switch for our nose X parameter. Another thing I realized is this isn't really the CC value that we're seeing here. This is actually the PoseNet value. The CC or the MIDI value would be the one that gets Z mapped. So if I just put a number box in here, maybe I just need to create a number box and then map it like that. So this value is actually our CC value, and this value up here is really our PoseNet value. Let's add that to the presentation as well. So a couple of things to arrange: these two objects here and the gate button. So or the gate toggle. So let's check that out. There's our toggle. We said that this is actually the CC value here, and this one is actually, the original one is our PoseNet value. So let's save that. Let's close it. Let's launch PoseNet. I've noticed as well, if you have PoseNet right at the top of your screen, it allows you to hide it and still get those values. Great, so you can see that when I'm all the way to the left, PoseNet value of close to 0 is a CC value of close to 0, and all the way to the right, PoseNet value close to 600 is a value close to 127 in MIDI. So we can turn that on and off, and when I have that off, there was no MIDI values coming out, and when I turn it on, we can see we're getting MIDI messages now. So I could quickly demonstrate that by turning off or deleting that mapping. And with this MIDI message off, if I go into MIDI mapping mode, nothing gets mapped. But if I turn that on, it's going to map this parameter to CC0. All right, so now all we need to do is duplicate that, because we want to use also our nose Y value, which is here. So we could, in theory, copy all of this, Option click and drag. This is going to be not nose X, but now nose Y. Everything else is going to be pretty similar. We're going to take the output of this gate and put it also into the CC input of our MIDI format. And the last thing we're going to need to do is take the output of our nose Y value and plug that into this part of our patch here where we get the PoseNet value. Let's arrange that. So enter presentation mode. Let's move those up just for now. let's grab these. So we have nose Y. And let's just do a similar thing beneath it for now. So here, there's the CC number. Here is our PoseNet value. And of course, we can start to clean this up as we work out what kind of features we want to have in our live device. And there's our on-off switch there. Save that, close that. Let's give our nose value a nose Y value a different CC number. Open PoseNet. And here we go. So we can... this parameter is still mapped to the X value. And let's make this second send knob map to our Y value. So we'll turn off that one, turn this one on, click that parameter, and then Command M. It is now mapped. And now if we turn them both back on, the X axis movement does the first parameter and the Y axis movement does the second. One last little thing that you'll notice is that the Y-axis is kind of inverted, because the way that Macs and most computers look at a screen, the top left-hand corner is Y value 0, and we go down from there. So that's why when I get closer to the top of the screen, we get lower values. That's kind of counterintuitive for my movement, so I might want to flip that. And the way to flip that is, there's a bunch of ways to do it, but this is one way we could do it in Macs. We can just, after we have our MIDI CC value, we can insert an object here, Shift-N, that will give us a reverse subtraction. So if we type in the same value, so 127, or 128 values, because it's 0 to 127, this will actually invert what we're getting. And really, what I want to do is put it before here, so just so we can see it on our output. So let's connect that to there. Let's pop it in here. So it's subtraction object, or an absolute subtraction object. 127 is our value. Save and close. And now once more, turn on PoseNet, and we'll see that when I go to the top of the screen, our value is a high MIDI CC value, and if I go down, it's a 0. And that's kind of more intuitive to how I would think about it. You could also change it in the Ableton MIDI mapping. There's a bunch of other ways you can do it too, but that's just one for now.